And for the next update, Microsoft Malaysia West Cloud region is expected to bring in $10.9 billion and create 37,575 jobs. But here's the challenge, only 5,700 of those will be skilled IT roles, with Malaysia aiming to be a regional tech hub. Is this enough? Can Microsoft do more to upskill Malaysians and ensure they don't get left behind in the digital economy? Let's dive into the opportunities and challenges ahead with our guest. Ready on the line is Ng Yi Chung, the partner AC Ventures. I want to say thank you very much, Yi Chung, for joining me. Talking about the economy and job impact from the Microsoft investments and the opportunities, while the Malaysia West Cloud region is expected to generate $10.9 billion in new revenues and create 37,575 new jobs. Only 5,700 are projected to be skilled IT jobs. How does Microsoft plan to bridge the skills gap to ensure more Malaysians can transition into higher value tech roles rather than remaining in lower skilled jobs?
The announcement with, from Microsoft with regards to the new West Malaysia initiative. I think the main point to make over here is that Microsoft's core revenue, and just to put things in perspective, Microsoft's cloud revenue represents just over half, almost 60% of the overall revenue. This is a highly important part of the business for them, and a big driver of this business for them is that they truly work together with channel partners, cloud partners, other service integrators and such that enable them to generate revenue through their cloud business. They're effectively incentivized to ensure that the workforce over here is capable or able to deliver on those projects in that basis. So from the Microsoft perspective, I think the first step is really enabling that their channel partners in Malaysia are able to do so. And they do so by ensuring that their channel partners are able to deliver on particular IT projects or cloud projects that are able to deliver value for their clients in Malaysia or in the surrounding region. I think that's really part one. I think beyond that is ensuring that on the client side, on the end client side, after the channel partners, being able to do so and ensuring that those users are able to transition towards whether it's AI-enabled services or projects and businesses and so on and so forth. That ensures that aspect is highly important from their perspective. So I think what they've really announced is really developing center of excellence at academies, schools, and so on and so forth, in order to ensure that this initiative really takes off towards that direction. That's so far what we've understood from their announcement so far.
We hope for the right direction. We've also need to consider concerns over data sovereignty and cybersecurity on the rise. How does, we can say, Microsoft plan to address regulatory changes? From this, we also want to take a look at how does Microsoft plan to address these challenges and ensure that Malaysian businesses and government agencies have full control over their data within the Malaysian West Cloud region.
Sure. I think data sovereignty and security has been the topic, or one of the key topics of the last decade or so. So what does it actually mean? On a very high level, it really means a few things. Number one would be access and control. Number two would be security and privacy. Number three would be how this data can be used across the board, really. I think data sovereignty really took off when Europe released the General Data Protection Act. One of the key aspects is really what kind of data needs to be subject to these kind of laws. So I think, for example, the most obvious and clear one would be financial transaction data needs to be stored on within national soil, for example. And as the world becomes both more global but at the same time more fragmentized, these laws start to take extremely important roles within how the overall cloud business globally or internet business globally takes shape. With regards to this new economic plan, I think one of the key aspects is really doing one of two things. I think number one is ensuring that Microsoft's data centers, or where that data is physically stored, firstly complies to those regulations and laws. I think secondly is I think what we haven't yet seen, and this is not just in Malaysia but on a global scale, is really bilateral or international type data bilateral agreements that allow data to be passed through or utilized across different regions. As such, I think one of the key things that as a country we are really taking leadership in is taking that role to define those laws. And while we're still in the early innings of that development, I think that is an extremely exciting area to look at, especially as these laws constantly get evolved and get developed. I think Microsoft's decision to take Malaysia as one of the key components in this part of the world, really in this region, in the APAC region, is highly important to ensure that those laws are really complied with from the business perspective. On the other hand, I think while the vast majority of businesses may not actually require those laws to take place, for example, anything that's really hyper-local in nature, whether you take F&B, for example, or maybe basic POS data, I think on a broader scale, when you think of enterprises, international banking, whether it's AI-based services and so on and so forth, then those laws, again, become extremely important to be compliant with.
And that is also, firstly, initially, we need to check what kind of data need to be subjected to the kind of law and policy. And one of it you have just shared is very important is the data transactional. And also, we also can take a look on the regional or the bilateral agreement. How can these data get passed through across the region? That is very important. And given that Malaysia ambitious to become a regional hub for cloud and AI and chairmanship ASEAN for 2025. How does Microsoft investment compare to other global cloud providers like AWS and Google Cloud in Malaysia, Amazon, and what unique advantages does Microsoft offer to local businesses?
Absolutely. I think we've seen a whole slew of announcements from the big giants, the big players in the world. I think a couple of months ago, we've obviously seen Microsoft announce a $2.2 billion commitment in mid-2024 to build out Malaysia's cloud and AI ambitions. They've also stated that these projects are expected to generate north of almost $11 billion over the next 3 years or so across the board. I think likewise, Google has announced roughly about the same amount, about $2 billion or about 9.4 billion ringgit in terms of building its data center, one of its very few owned data centers in Malaysia, with approximately similar economic impact in the country. And last but not least, I think AWS, the biggest giant of them all, with about 30% global market share in the cloud business, plans to invest has stated plans to invest approximately 30 billion ringgit or about $6 billion worth of investments. But this is true to 2038, so almost 12, 13 years later. I think in short, the global giants of the world have announced big plans to invest in Malaysia. I think that's number one. I think number two, this is broadly aligned with our own national or government's initiative to push Malaysia as a key leader in this space. With regards to your second part of your question, which is really what can Microsoft do and what is their competitive advantage to the other cloud players, I think what Microsoft clearly has, number one, is a deep embeddedment with regards to enterprise businesses or Office-type solutions. If you think about Microsoft Office, Office 365, if you think about any computer out there in the country, which one of them doesn't really have Microsoft Windows or Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Word? I think that's really been a large moat that Microsoft really has had over the last couple of decades, and that's not going away anytime soon, regardless of what anyone can really say. I think on top of that, what they've really done over the last 2 years is really start to integrate the likes of AI and Copilot or Microsoft Copilot into the broader business. But I think what I've really been impressed by over the last couple of years is the efforts and investments they have taken into the overall cloud business. So as a business, over the last couple of years, they've never really been a cloud player until the last 5 to 8 years or so. And they've taken real big strides with regards to developing the Azure business, the Dynamics business. And what these businesses are really is that they're deep enterprise solutions that really add value to larger corporates that allow them to take their businesses into the cloud, fully integrate them across the stack, whether it's within the enterprises or beyond the enterprises. I think what we're really seeing is Microsoft's ability to take what is an existing moat in its business within existing clients and expand its businesses to provide value to the rest of its client base through their own ecosystems. And that's something that's really exciting to see. On the other hand, if we look at other businesses like AWS and Google Cloud, for example, on one hand, they may lack that existing moat of having already a foot in the door into existing businesses. But at the same time, AWS has been in the game much longer. They have a much significant, larger market share, roughly about 30% compared to the next player number 2, which is approximately about 12 to 13% global market share. And initially, I mean, AWS started without any foothold in an existing business ecosystem. Google Cloud, on the other hand, already had Google Search and the rest of the G Suite type offerings. But again, from a market share perspective, this is relatively nascent. And I mean, compared to what Microsoft existingly had in the world, really, and historically, I think that was really a big step up with regards to how far they had to chase to become an important or integral part of any business unit. So I think in terms of those unique advantages Microsoft has to offer local businesses, again, I think number one, it already has that foot in the door. I think number two is ensuring that the solutions are able to be integrated fully into the existing business ecosystem. And I think last but not least, ensuring that it is able to work beyond the Microsoft ecosystem with other system providers or other IT solutions. I think that would be highly important to that business.
And Yi Chung, you are hoping also for this effort, initiative, dreams, hopes, and even goals, and not only to achieve, to bring high impact or added value, but also sustainable. We can commit in the long term, and therefore we need a long-term strategy. So I'm going to bring in about the war. The ongoing tariff war specifically has led to a more fragmented global economy where technology companies must navigate competing spheres of influence. How does Microsoft investment in Malaysia fit into its broader strategy to maintain leadership in the AI and cloud space while avoiding potential trade barriers that could impact Malaysian businesses reliant on its cloud ecosystem?
Absolutely, and this is probably the topic of the day, the week, the month, and the year. I mean, the ongoing international relations topic or the trade war, I think, has been really rearing up its head over the last couple months. And this has largely been driven by geopolitics and foreign policy across the board. I think, with regard, if we were to take a step back and provide some context, what's happening today is an unprecedented, well, I would argue maybe not unprecedented, but largely an event of international proportions with regards to how global nations or global governments are really taking their negotiations to the next level. I think, with regards to how this affects the global economy and what this means for the broader internet economy, I think first and foremost, it's very clear that at least on a goods basis versus a services basis, it's very clear that those lines and those borders are being drawn. And those lines are being and borders are being drawn because nations are using those initiatives to negotiate their upper hand with regards to what they want in how the global paradigm takes place. And I think we're nowhere near. My guess is that we're nowhere near to seeing the end of this just yet. And I think that's really step one. I think step two is really how this proliferates from the goods sector towards the services sector, which is really where the broader internet economy or the digital economy really lies. I think my suspicion is that data sovereignty and data protection laws have taken place over the last decade or so. Until today, they've really taken a very calm and protracted approach to how it's evolved. I think the next big step is really how this tariff phenomena or this geopolitical phenomena affects how these data laws and regulations really conform and evolve across the board. No one has really debated the importance of AI and data in our world today. What really happens next is that, okay, if I own, as a country, if I own this amount of data, and this is important to not just myself, but it's also important to maybe your LLM, training and data inference, then what value does this have to you? And more importantly, how can I derive, as a country, how can I derive value and protect the data that is supposedly important to someone else? I think Microsoft's investment in Malaysia and how this fits into its broader strategy is really taking into account these geopolitics and these different borders, ensuring that it is compliant not just within a particular country but across particular regions, especially given that the APEC region has taken a certain role of neutrality in this broader East-West type fragmentation.